Hey, it's Dan, and in this video we'll change the oil on this Yamaha TW200. An oil change is about the easiest service that you can do on your bike. On the T-Dubs, it's probably a 1, maybe a 2 out of 5 for difficulty. Should take you about a half hour to finish. The first thing we'll do is remove the fill plug. This will make the oil flow a lot easier. So I'll wipe the area around it. Sometimes these are on there pretty tightly, so use a set of pliers to break them free. Next up, we'll use a 19mm socket to remove the oil drain plug. One thing to watch out for is inside of here is a spring along with a wire filter, so keep an eye out for it, be ready to grab it so it doesn't fall into the dirty oil. The other thing to remember is that those are on there pretty tightly, so you may need a longer wrench to break this free. Now the actual oil filter element on this bike is located on the right side of the engine, so it's just under this tab. For some reason, the engineers decided to use 2 Phillips screws and a hex bit, so we'll just loosen those up. This is a 5mm hex. Now, I don't know what genius decided that it was a great idea to use Phillips screws on this thing, but they get pretty tight and I'm not able to get this one out with a screwdriver. So I'm going to resort to an impact driver. The way that this works is you push it up against the screw, you hit it with a hammer. As you hit it with a hammer, it creates force into the screw at the same time turning it to the left. So this makes stuck screws much easier to remove. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so it broke this one free. Now, as you remove this cover, you might have some oil leaking down here, so just make sure you have a pan right under it. I'll start with the top screws. Next up, I'll just clean the area. Be careful, there's a little rubber O-ring on the bottom bolt, so make sure you don't lose that. And you just want to make sure that the surface is nice, smooth, and clean. So it's usually a good idea to replace the O-rings. In this case, this one looks pretty worn out, so let's pull this off. And I've got a replacement here. I bought this at Menards. Got the replacement filter. Now, I don't want to have to deal with the Phillips head screws ever again, so I ended up getting a replacement set off of Amazon. Take a look below for a link. If you end up buying your own set, make sure that you buy something that's hex and not the traditional socket type. the sockets might be too big to actually fit the bolt and the wrench right around each of the holes here. So you want something that's a small round head like this. So we'll go ahead and reinstall this guy. Remember, the longest one went on the upper right. So always try to catch these by hand. Don't take a wrench to it until you're absolutely sure that you've caught the threads. The middle length screw is on the bottom. Make sure that your O-ring is still underneath. And the shortest one is on the left side. Next up, I'll clean out the drain plug. And the screen filter just pops right out of the spring. You can see there's a bunch of crap on it too. So let's clean that up. And it looks pretty much brand new. Okay, so at this point the oil's pretty much stopped draining. I'll wipe the surface clean, make sure there's no particles on here. I've got a new O-ring on my drain plug, so we'll insert the screen back into the spring, slide it into the engine, and then make sure that you catch the threads by hand. Once you're sure you got it, you can use a socket with an extension to finish it up. And finally, we'll tighten the drain plug to 31 foot-pounds. The spec on this bike calls for 1 liter of 10W40. So 1 liter is just a little bit more than a standard US quart. So we'll empty this bottle, see where we're at, and then add a little bit more, little by little, until the oil level is between the min and the max levels. Make sure that your funnel is clean. Now, with us replacing the oil filter, it might actually be a little bit more than 1 liter. So what I'm going to do next up is put the filler cap back on. Then we'll start the bike, warm it up for a few minutes. The oil density is going to be a little bit different, so you might get a little bit of a different reading with cold oil versus hot oil. We'll see where we're at and then add little by little. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.